want to talk about, maybe some specific conditions. Like I know in Chinese medicine, they talk about the liver kind of holding on to
Yeah.
anger and bitterness, right? Of
Yeah.
course, liver is your primary detoxification organ, and literally almost every chronic health condition, there's a liver component to it, right? And so, but there are other things like, there's, for example, breast cancer and different types of specific diseases,
Yeah.
and there's thought to be certain limiting beliefs or certain kind of dominant
That's
fears or
right.
thoughts or anxieties that people have that are correlated with that. What have you found with your research?
Yeah. So let's hit on the five main according to ancient medicine. And so, by the way, there are some new medicines where people are. It's funny. Somebody asked me the other day if I'd heard of German new medicine,
Mm.
and the reality is, I'm like, well, German new medicine. I'm like, it's kind of a take on Chinese old medicine. But anyways, it's a little different. I've read about. I understand it's a little different though. But there's people in Asia have been talking about this for a long time. So here's the first one. So the first one is correlated with, let's start with liver, as you said. If somebody has gallbladder disease, if somebody has actually even high cholesterol, there's a number of things. But if you have any issue related to liver, gallbladder, cholesterol, you're not detoxifying well, certain types of cancer, it tends to be tied to a specific type of emotion that's related to anger. So here's how this works. And let me jump out to another organ system because people will really understand this one. We know if your body gets in a fight or flight state, you have fear, that's the emotion, fear, your adrenal glands start pumping out adrenaline and stress hormones like cortisol. Okay, so we know that for a fact. But the same happens in every organ system. No matter what emotion you have, it affects a different organ system, negative and positive. So with the liver and gallbladder, it's anger, frustration, impatience, resentment, and bitterness. And then actually unforgiveness impacts two systems. So the liver and the immune system. So all that being said, if you have a lot of, this is like, why do we call someone an angry drunk? Well, alcohol causes liver toxicity and cirrhosis too much. I mean, these are very tied together. So one, we know if you've got a lot of anger built up, unforgiveness towards others, and they say that here, what do they say? If you're harboring unforgiveness, it's like drinking poison. What's poison? It's a toxin. What's it affecting? It's affecting the liver. Yeah. So all of these words are, they're there for a reason. And so that's the first one. If you've got any liver gallbladder issue, anger, that's going to affect that system. The next one, let's talk about the adrenals again. And by the way, the adrenals are also in this system very tied to your reproductive health. Okay. If people are living in a fight or flight state, it's going to affect the adrenal glands. Now, what happens then in Chinese medicine, by the way, is sometimes you have a secondary organ system that's affected. So with the liver, if somebody has a lot of anger, the next area it will affect is the heart, and then cause the blood pressure to go up. Okay. So that's the secondary system that's affected. With the adrenal glands, the secondary systems that are affected are two: the reproductive system or the thyroid. In women, it tends to be the thyroid, causing hypothyroidism. In men, it tends to not be the thyroid. It tends to be the testes and testosterone. And so most women with thyroid issues, there is an adrenal component. That's why also when you look at a lot of the remedies, they tend to be a lot of adaptogens like ashwagandha, which we know is an adrenal herb, but also supports the thyroid, as I know of you written about extensively in your articles and newsletter. And so, but similar thing for men, it's low testosterone. If men are not unplugging, relaxing, now there's other things to build testosterone, but that is a really also still a very key component there of that. So again, we know that the emotions of fear, and this could be fear of failure, fear of disappointing your parents, fear of letting others down. If you're a big people pleaser, there's a lot of fear of wanting to make everyone around you happy, fear that you're going to fail in your career. So you don't write the book, you don't launch the business, you don't change jobs or careers, right? So that fear really, these emotions build up like toxins in your organ systems. The next one is your heart. And so if you have, this tends to be very relational. If you've got really a lot of relationship turmoil, that affects your heart. Okay, if you feel if you don't feel connected in a sense of community, if you don't have a community and you're isolated and feel shame of those sort of issues, it really affects the heart. And then the heart, if there's heart issues, that can also affect the thyroid or the neurological system. But there's a big effect there. And so the heart, and also think about your heart. If you have a lot of, and anxiety is one of the main emotions there as well, that can then affect the blood pressure. So we know emotions affect your organ systems. And then a couple more. The next is the immune system. And the immune system is mostly tied to your lungs and your colon where almost all of your probiotics, the microbes in your body live. And so when you have, and this is tied to things that have happened in the past. Okay. So if somebody has had something happen in the past, could be physical abuse, could be sexual trauma, could be you always wanted to do something, but you have a lot of regret for something you just never did. And if you're still, if you have things that happened years ago that still bother you today, that is shutting down your immune system. It's weakening your immune system. And so you really need to move on from those things. I mentioned earlier, unforgiveness affects two systems. Unforgiveness is resentment or anger or something about something in the past. So it's affecting both the liver and the immune system, which unforgiveness of all, it's known that it's the chief of all negative emotions that will cause cancer, because cancer is primarily an issue of immunity and toxicity.
Yeah. I talked to my friends over at Hope for Cancer in Mexico, where I've sent a lot of people. And one of the biggest things they do, obviously they detox people. They've got them in hyperbaric chambers and doing enemas and IVs. But they say one of the most important things they can do within that first week is help them work through unresolved bitterness and unforgiveness.
So good. Yeah, so good. And those people are down, down at Oasis or they're
Hope
great.
For Cancer, Cancun,
or Hope
and
for Cancer.
Tijuana. Yeah.
Yeah, so good. And then the last system is the digestive system. And this is really correlated with your pancreas and your stomach and upper and part of your intestines as well. And so if you have a lot of worry, think about if somebody worries a lot, they'll say, oh, like I have an upset stomach, and actually cause digestive disturbances. And so that's a major issue. If you worry a lot and you're just always worrying, or here's another one, obsessing, or control. If you always want to try and control things that are not in your control, that will make your digestive system sick. And you've seen this, right? Like you and I have both taken care of patients with irritable bowel disease, Crohn's, colitis, IBS. And what will cause them to be just as inflamed as eating dairy or gluten is if they have a lot of worry or they're going through a stressful time in life, right? Yeah. So there is absolutely this brain body, this physiological connection that a lot of people aren't aware of enough. And it's that if you really want to truly heal whatever condition you're dealing with, you got to go full at it with diet and the other natural remedies, and also your emotions. And so if you are struggling with unforgiveness, forgive, move on, and then now focus on the future, because that's all about that. If you're struggling with the heart, the main emotion to heal the heart is joy. If you can get joyful, singing, dancing, those sort of things actually help build joy. Part of gratitude is incredibly important because it is for really healing all systems. So all that being said, you want to take whatever, like if you're hopeless, start finding hope and build your faith, right? So you want to both let go of the negative and then start fostering the opposite emotion to help that organ regenerate and heal more quickly.
Yeah, this is such powerful information. And, we know that when we're fearful, you had talked about how we get all of these stress hormones, and those activate the amygdala and the limbic system. And then we get more neuroplasticity there, and that inhibits what we call our frontal cortex. And that's what allows us to kind of dampen fear and think more complex thoughts. Like you had to get out of limbic and into your frontal cortex in order to say, hey, I'm going to write a book about this. I had these limiting beliefs. I'm going to write a book. So you got proactive. That's the frontal cortex. But you had to dampen that limbic system, that amygdala firing, or you would have never got there. Right. And that's exactly the cool thing about neuroplasticity. And this is really important because we can also pass this down to our kids. You've got 2 young daughters. I've got 4 young kids. And what's interesting is that my wife, for example, she grew up and by a single mom. She was raised by a single mom. Her dad, who now is a part of her life, was not a part of her life, right? And so she always struggled with kind of this fear that I'm not lovable, right? And
Yeah.
my daughter, Joyful, who's 5.5, she will ask me, and I snuggle her, tell her how much I love her every
Yeah.
single day. I'm here every day telling her this. And she'll ask me, like at times, maybe when I'm upset at her, or, when I send her to her room, or perhaps I'm giving somebody else, one of my other kids, attention, she'll come up and say, "Do you love me?" Right. And she has no reason to think that, but perhaps she got that same insecurity from her mom. And for me, I always struggled with a fear
Yeah.
of failure. And what's interesting is, like, my biggest nightmare, this is funny, but I will dream sometimes that I have to go take a test, and I've never been to the class. Like, I don't even know what the material, and I've got to
Yeah.
go in and
Yeah.
take this test. And I'm like, I wake up in like a cold sweat, because I'm like, I'm going to fail. I don't know
Yeah.
what's on this test. What's interesting is my son, he's doing this program, Duolingo. I have twin boys. They do this program, Duolingo, and where they're learning Spanish, and they're learning it really, really quickly. It's they're doing it online. And he told me he's had nightmares that he's failed, because, like, every day they're trying to, like, pass two segments, and they're like super driven, goal driven, kind of high achieving boys. And he's had nightmares that he didn't pass Duolingo. Like, he just told me that last week. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, he got that from me. Right. And so,
What's crazy, and I just want to mention this, and feel free to share your thoughts on
yeah,
this, but as I have really studied cellular medicine, how to heal the cells, how to regenerate and create a new thyroid, so people are completely reversing these conditions. This is epigenetics. I mean, it's
yeah,
crazy when you look at the epigenetics, which for anyone listening, I mean, the research is undeniable and incredible, that what the parents do affects the kids. I mean, we know it from the basic standpoint of, pregnant mothers and the health of their gut microbiome being passed on to the kids. Well, it's far more than that. I mean, our cells have memories. Okay. Now your kids aren't going to remember, whatever your memories at all, but our cells do have memories that are passed on via our DNA and these epigenetics. And so some of those same emotions and those thoughts, in a way, are going to creep back into them. So the more that you can heal, not only your gut, not only your heart, not only your organs, by eating a healthy diet, the more that you can actually retrain your brain, even when you're adult, like in your adult years, it actually helps your kids. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I just think I'm so grateful I've been able to work through this, and to continue to work through, my own insecurities, and my wife has as well. So we can identify them in our kids and really speak into them, and really help,
Yeah.
in a sense, give them this advanced knowledge that, hey, this is something you're probably going to struggle with throughout the rest of your life, but I did too. And here are tools, right? Here's things that you can do, right, to help overcome that, and kind of create that neuroplastic change. Like I said, getting out of that limbic system as quickly as possible. Sometimes we have anxieties, we have fears, just part of being a human, right? But the more awareness we have, being able to identify it, and then kind of switching our mindset and saying, okay, what can I do about this, right? Like, how can I
Yeah.
reduce this tension, and what do I actually have control of that I can do right now? Like with my kid, with my sons, I coach them in sports, and they're great athletes, and I always tell them, here's what we control: like your effort and your attitude, right? Give all your effort and always have a good attitude, right? That's all you can control. You can't control if we win or lose, but if you have a great effort and attitude, you're going to have fun, and that's going to
Yeah.
give you the best chance to win. And so it's kind of like that. We want to have awareness, and then figure out, like, hey, what can we actually control in this situation to give us the best chance at having a positive outcome? Like you were talking about, if somebody, what you said earlier, that was like what every doctor should be telling their patient. It's like, okay, well, you have a 50% chance of healing this if, you just stay where you're at right now. But if you, work on your mindset, you have hope, and you believe this, and you're praying over this, and you're following these strategies, that gives you an 80-90% chance to heal.
Yeah.
Right. And now that gives you hope, that gives you, it gives you enthusiasm, right? And a game plan to attack it.
Well, and I want to say this, Dr. Dave, I want to see how much you agree with this. If we had the average person with type 2 diabetes go in and see a conventional medical doctor, what I believe their chances are of reversing type 2 diabetes are, if they're just following what that doctor's telling them to do and believing what they're telling them to do, it's close to 0%.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
If they would come see you and by the way, I'm not trying to be boastful here, but I think it's about 90%.
Yeah.
Type 2 diabetes, average person comes in, Dr. Dave and I work with them and they follow the exact plan we give them. I just, and my point is, and there's a combination of two things there. Those other doctors, either they're totally unaware or they don't believe it can happen. It's a limiting belief most doctors have. You and I believe with absolute certainty, no, of course this can heal because we've seen it done thousands of times, type 2 diabetes. And so, and we're going to give you the exact plan to follow. So it's, I mean, that's the reality that we're living in today, even with the whole medical system.